Welcome to Building Great Sales Teams, a show dedicated to making sales teams tick, tick, boom. Great sales teams are not recruited, they are built, block by block. Let's get to work.
All right, guys, we got Danielle Mulvey. She's a flight attendant turned entrepreneur, author, and podcast host. She's had several companies that combine for about $50 million in revenue a year while only spending 10 hours a week overseeing operations. Her passion is guiding entrepreneurs in recruiting and training five-star employees, which are employees that make big plays and get consistent results. And you can find some of that guidance in her book, The Rapid Real Guide to Five-Star Employee Rating System. Also on her podcast, Profit First Nation. Danielle, it's an honor to have you on the show.
Thanks so much, Doug. Treat to be here.
And that is, you've got some accolades there for sure. And you're also writing a book right now, correct?
Yeah. So we've got the Rapid Read Guide to the Five-Star Employee Rating System, and then I'm collaborating with Mike Michalowicz, the author of Profit First, on his next book, which is titled All In: How to Get Your Employees to Act Like Owners. And that book will come out in the fall of 2023.
That one is very interesting to me because, you know, especially my business network and then also some of my consulting clients, recruiting is a hot topic right now, especially since there's a lot of opportunity out in the marketplace, a lot of money being put into the economy, so a lot of new positions available. And so it's competitive out there. And so I've been getting that question a lot. How do I recruit top tier talent, especially within sales organizations? You know, because the comp plans are pretty crazy right now. And then we're having to adjust them like every quarter with inflation. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so it's been a constant subject, which I really want to get into. But I would love to learn a little bit about you first. So would you mind taking us from flight attendant to business owner? How did that happen?
Yeah. So I was a flight attendant for about a year after graduating from Vanderbilt. And I kind of treated it as my gap year. I was kind of like just hanging around a little bit, just wanting to have a little downtime and such. And, you know, what was funny about that is I did not enjoy being a flight attendant. I really should have never been a flight attendant. They should have never hired me to be a flight attendant because I wasn't going to be in it for the long haul. And what's funny is I schlepped all the way to Dallas, Texas for the interview. And I swear to God, the interview was like 5 minutes. And the person interviewing me was like, well, I mean, if you want this job, it's yours. This is like the fastest interview I've ever conducted. And I'm just like, okay, sure. Like it was just, they didn't kick the tires on me at all. It was just like, oh, you graduated from Vanderbilt. Oh, you live in California. Oh, you like to travel. Okay, great. The job is yours. It was, you know, and again, I'll say shame on them. They shouldn't have hired me. I was a great flight attendant. I will tell you, when I was in the air, I was a 5-star flight attendant, but the job just wasn't for me. Right.
Yeah. And that happens all too often. We're good enough, you know what I mean, to do the position, but are we passionate about it? Are we going to be there long-term? A lot of times we don't have that answer until we're in it. Right. And so I guess at what point did you decide, hey, this isn't for me? You knew it in your heart.
When I took the job. So bad. But anyways, we can move on from there. So after I graduated, after I completed my year of being a flight attendant, I went to work for an advertising and marketing firm. And it was interesting. That company, when I started, had over 65 employees. And less than a year later, they were down to like 14 employees. And I had tried to quit that organization because it was so dysfunctional. And this firm had been around for decades. And you know, every time I tried to quit, they just doubled my salary. They gave me more money. And finally it just came to the point where I just needed to go. And so when I left, a client that I was their third or fourth account executive, found me and was just like, hey, you were the only one that got stuff done for us. Like, could you like work for us? Could you do something and keep this going? And so I was like, sure. So then I started, founded the Maverick Group, which is an advertising and marketing agency in Nashville. And we were doing over $1 million within a year of being in business. And we specialized in high ticket items, with high end retailers and such. So
Very cool.
that was my entry into entrepreneurship, and my brilliant hiring strategy, because I was only 25, ripe old age of 25 when I started this business, was to hire people younger than me. Because if I was not doing a good job, they would have no idea.
Right.
And that worked for a while.
A lot of people think that that's the qualifier, right? I'm looking at someone for my MDU director position, and he's like 28, but the rest of my team probably averages about 35, So in my head, I'm already like, gosh, are they going to be able to not take orders, but take leadership from someone that's, a lot younger than them, or whatever the case is. But, I'm sure that not to be true, that it doesn't matter the age, what matters is the experience and then the mindset, right?
Exactly. 100%. And so, my hiring decisions were based off of people who went to the same school as me. And it came down to these two wonderful candidates. And one of the candidates was actually in the same sorority house as me. So that was my decision. So I really just had like an ad hoc, just from the seat of my pants, hiring mentality when I first started my business. And then a couple years in, and I was lucky, like they worked out well, but then a couple years in, I kind of used that same strategy of, okay, I went to college with your sister and you are friends with one of my great employees and you were fraternity brothers. So you're hired. And he ended up being a huge disaster. I mean, I remember waking up one Monday morning going, can I call in sick to my own company? Like, I did not want to go into work. I didn't want to deal with him. He was always combative. He didn't get the memo in graphic design school that the clients always write.
Right.
And so it was just like, oh my gosh, like I cannot let this happen again. I can't be in this situation. Like if I don't want to go into my own office. And so at that point, I just was like, I've got to learn what to do, how to do this differently, get real serious about it. And, that just kind of started like this process and this evolution of doing research and investigating different things. And then just, continually making my processes and systems better on recruiting, hiring, and retaining what I refer to as 5-star employees. And they're the top 15% of available talent in the market. So the secret is weeding out the 1, 2, and 3-star, the average ho-hum people, and not be tempted by hiring them, and really never settle for less than 5-star employees.
No, that's great. And what do you think tempts us to hire the less than 5-star employees?
We just don't time and preparation. So, I think that most business owners or most hiring managers are like, oh, I've got an interview in 15 minutes. Okay, let me Google some questions. So they've been very inconsistent. They're not necessarily knowing exactly the aptitudes and skills they're looking for. They're not getting real specific on, what the key responsibilities are and what success will look like for those key responsibilities. They're not quantifying what success looks like in the role. And so they're just like, okay, you have a pulse, warm body, you can start Monday. Great. You're hired. And, success leaves clues, and also failure leaves clues. And so, when you've made a mishire, you really need to take some time to, analyze the mishire. Why was it a mishire? And, how can you incorporate that knowledge into your future recruitment and hiring? So, for example, for us, in one of our businesses, it has a small business office, and the team likes to eat lunch together. And we brought someone in for a shadow day, and we brought someone in They had gone through all of our processes and such, and had trained, et cetera. And then they did not like to eat lunch with everyone. And, about 2 weeks after they had started, they're like, this isn't for me. I really don't like the aspect that we have to eat lunch together. And that became like an aha. So now in our shadow days, we incorporate eating lunch together, and talk about how this is what we do in the business. We had gone out to lunch that day, so it kind of seemed like a special event, and it wasn't really clear that no, we eat lunch in my team that's there eats lunch every day together. They bring their lunch because we're in an industrial area. There's not many places to grab lunch, et cetera.
Right.
And that was really the deal breaker. So now we don't go out to lunch. We don't treat them to a nice lunch, because that's not the reality of our business. We go to nice lunches when it's someone's birthday, et cetera. But on the day to day, everyone's eating together.
Gotcha. So my question would be, or one of my questions is, so when I first started out, my business was strictly door to door, right? Not an attractive position. And so not until recently, the last couple of years, has it kind of gone to a referral based model, to a high end closer model, which, most of the salespeople that I hire, I see them doing 6 figures in a year, basically, once they move up through maybe one position in the company, or the position itself is a 6-figure position, right?
Yeah.
And so now I'm having to kind of change my model, because my model before was, if you can walk and chew gum, I'm going to hire you, right? Because if you're willing to take on door-to-door sales, you know what I mean, that qualifies you right away. We can teach you the rest. So the model was, the training system would weed them out. We'd have a high turnover rate from hire to first sale.
Right.
And then it would get a little lower from first sale to 5th sale. But we tracked everything. We kept our metrics on point, and we knew, okay, if I invest, $5,000 on the front end, that in, 3-4 weeks, I'll have 5 salespeople that will be producing at least 3 to 5 sales a week. Right. And so it was, there was no before the hire process. It was like, okay, we have these pools that we hire from, Indeed, Career Builder, Facebook, and we have these places that we hire from. We know which do the best, but we need volume, right? Because at the time, I had a sales force of like 100 plus, right?
Wow.
And so we knew we needed the volume in order to keep the machine going, right? Otherwise, the sales would go down if there weren't enough people. The turnover was high, so it was this crazy machine. And so going from that to now, I have 25 salespeople. Half of them make 6 figures. The other half are in the high 70s and 80s. And now I'm looking for people that align with our core values.
Yes.
Now I'm looking for people that have experience in the marketplace, and maybe even some experience in sales. But that core value is kind of the first qualifier, right?
Yeah, actually, that is the first star of the 5-star employee rating system, is alignment of core values. So you are right on there. And it's really important that they're your true core values. They're not the aspirational values of the business. There's lots of different types of values, accidental values, et cetera, but they're your true core values, because that's how you replicate yourself. That's in your DNA. And so if you want people to act like you and think like you, it starts with, are they in alignment with the same core values? So check the box on that one.
Awesome. Well, that's a good start. So going from, like you said, hiring a warm body to hiring with intention, it sounds like, what are some of those questions that you can ask in the interview because it is tough to, of course, if I ask someone, so one of our core values is we operate in integrity. If I ask them, do you operate in integrity? They're going to say yes right away. Right.
Right.
So
yeah.
How do you make sure they're aligned with your core values? I usually don't find that out until like 30 days in or so.
Yeah. So if we kind of go through the rest of the 5-star employee rating system, I think that kind of answers it for you. So the second star of the 5-star employee rating system is the 11 qualities of a 5-star employee. So we've identified 11 universal qualities of a 5-star employee, and 2 of them actually are coded red, meaning like these are huge red flags. If the person, does not meet your minimum score for these qualities, then it's really a deal breaker, because the red ones are very difficult or almost impossible to change. And so you ask, well, what would that be? One is flexibility. And because you need, especially businesses, you need people to be able to pivot. You need people to be able to move. You need people to, maybe unload a truck of boxes because something showed up unexpectedly at the wrong location, et cetera. So flexibility is one of those ones. And what we do is by understanding what you want. So you have these 11 qualities, and then we have like the definition for, what these 11 qualities mean, but maybe it's different for you. And maybe you need to tweak the definition, but you need to be really specific on what you mean by flexibility. I had someone email me the other day that, said in their job posting, oh, it's a flexible job. And when the person completed training, the supervisor said, okay, great. I'm glad you're done with training. I'll be working with you now as your supervisor. And I'd like to set up a time each week that we can, schedule a sync up, just kind of touch base on things and such. And the person's reply was like, I thought this job was flexible. If I have to commit to meeting at a certain day and time, then this is not flexible. I quit. So it's kind of funny how, you can work whatever hours you want was the employer's intention for saying flexibility in the ad, but the employee took that as, I never have to be accountable to anything. I don't have to show up for anything specifically because I can just work when I want, how I want. And, it's kind of unfortunate that a 20-minute meeting once a week was the deal breaker for this person, and they had already gone through training. So that's a huge mishire that you'd spent all this money on this person. So the 11 qualities, and then you need to design questions to get more specific about it. So we do have, in our 5-star rating system, we do have like good basic questions that apply to most businesses and such, but then we challenge the people that go through our program to really get more specific and design questions that really look at what they're looking for. And typically it's using examples. So like this person needs to add to, when they do the 5-star rating system, they need to add to it. And this person hadn't gone through the 5-star rating system, but they need to add to that question, like, would you be, this is a flexible job and you can work whatever hours. We're looking for you to, complete this once a week, blah, blah, blah. But, are you available to set a specific day and time, Monday through Friday, one time per week during normal business hours? And if they say no, then that's a deal breaker. They're not flexible.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's crazy that you mentioned that, because that was one of the issues. I had a employee that was with me for 6 or 7 years, and I needed them to show up at an office because they were remote at that point, right? I needed them to show up at an office and receive people at the front until we hired someone to do that. You know what I mean? And they had gotten so ingrained in the current position that they were at that they didn't want to have to show up to an office every day, not even if it was temporary. And so that was just unfortunate that that it turned into that, even after 5 or 6 years with the company. But I think it's just one of those things, you get comfortable in what you're doing, and then you kind of like set your bar there and you're not willing to go below it anymore,
Yeah. And that person probably wasn't flexible on some other things too, maybe.
Yeah, no,
when you really look at it, right?
There was some red flags early on, but the skill set was there. You know what I mean? The talent was there. So you tend to, especially when you're younger in your career, you tend to overlook those things.
Right. And rule number 1 in the 5-star employee rating system is never settle. So it is a numbers game, and not everyone is a 5-star employee. The top 15% of available talent is a 5-star employee potential. And that means 1 out of every 7 candidates is a potential 5-star employee. So it's a numbers game for sure. But 6 out of the 7 are no bueno. You don't want them. And they might be 5-star for another position. I mean, let's be honest. I could get hired as a bookkeeper tomorrow. No problem. But I would be a 2-star bookkeeper because I don't enjoy the work. I can do it and someone can pay me, but I would hate it. And I would just probably procrastinate. Like it would just bring out the worst qualities in me. But I'm a 5-star everything else.
Right.
And I was a 5-star flight attendant.
Still going back to that one, huh?
And then the 3rd star in the 5-star employee rating system is aptitudes and skills. And so we've got over 30 aptitudes and skills. And these ones, you kind of decide which ones are applicable to the position. And again, there's a definition associated with them, and you customize questions based off the aptitudes and skills that you're looking for. And then you give it kind of like a minimum rating that you'll accept. And then when you do the interview process, as you're asking the questions, you're going to rate the candidate on integrity, for example, is one of the aptitudes. And then it's so important that you test their skills. Just because I can say I'm a bookkeeper doesn't mean I have the skills of a bookkeeper. So it's so important that you design testing or use off-the-shelf testing or use free testing online to really ensure that the person not only says they can do it, but they actually can do it, because that's what matters. It doesn't matter if you can say it, it matters if you can do it.
Yeah, we use, so one of the places that we hire at right now is Indeed, and they have a sales test. And it's kind of crazy that just putting that sales test in there will reduce your candidates by like 70%, because they won't follow the instructions, or they won't want to do that little bit of extra work than just hitting the apply now button.
Congratulations. It is all about filtering out those 1, 2, 3-star candidates. So you're not tempted by them. And you're really like our hiring process is we've referred to it as a gauntlet, because it's many steps. And it filters out those 1, 2, and 3-star candidates. But right off the bat, we have a similar thing. You're taking a preview assessment, and we score that against a benchmark. And it is amazing. I'm like the number of people that don't that bother to apply, but like it said, step number 2 is to take this test within 24 hours. It's immediately emailed to them, and they don't. So it's like, okay, great. Thanks. I don't have to waste my time on you.
Yeah. And you're doing that. You're already doing more than 90% of employers, I would say, by creating that, even just the first phase of that gauntlet. Right.
Exactly.
And so I had a friend in my business network reach out to me today, and he's like, hey, I'm going to start hiring canvassers, start hiring people that are out in the field knocking doors. And he asked me where I get them from. And I'm like, well, it's about so much more than that, right? You can go on Indeed and put an ad out there and have 40 applications tomorrow, but your post-hire process better be really good to weed them out. You know what I'm saying? Versus weeding them out on the front end. And then your post-hire process is more about training and investing in them. And then that's when you get, I would assume, more of the 5-star employees, or in his case, sales reps that are going to stick around longer and do better for the company.
Exactly. Yes. And then the 4th star in the 5-star employee rating system is success metrics. So yes, you need to have these, very detailed job descriptions that get into things like must be able to lift 40 pounds and all of that kind of compliance stuff. But in your job postings, you want to kind of boil that down to the 3 to 5 key responsibilities for that job. And then with those key responsibilities, have the success metric associated with that responsibility. So, if you need someone to close sales, then you need to say, you're going to be going through our sales process, knocking on doors, et cetera. And, you need to close 3 sales per week. And so you're very clear, you're very specific. And again, what's interesting about that is it attracts the people that are competitive. It attracts the people that like to gamify their job, and it repels the people who just want to collect a paycheck, because there's, like you said, 95% of the employers out there, you could just apply, get hired, and collect a paycheck forever before anyone realizes that you're really doing nothing. So, so it's really important to have those quantifiable success metrics.
That makes a lot of sense too, because all of our old ads used to be about how much you can make versus what we need from you, right? and the success metric is what we need from you. And so it gives them a standard. And then especially if your messaging is consistent throughout the onboarding and training process, and it's always like 4 sales in a week, and it's that throughout, then they'll have that in their subconscious and their conscious moving forward.
That's exactly it. It's sort of like this reverse engineering. And I can't tell you how it's so simple, but even businesses like fail to reverse engineer and know how many sales they need to make in a year to make, $1 million, $2 million, $3 million.
Right.
So that definitely helps them gamify it and, hit the ground running. And then the 5th star in the 5-star employee rating system is return on payroll. So, with this one, what you're looking for is you're looking to design the job that produces at least a 3x return on that person's payroll. So if they're getting paid $50,000 a year, then they need to be producing or doing things that are contributing to $150,000 in revenue. So it's really important that this helps you also get real clear on the key responsibilities and what you need from the individual so that you're designing the job that it is producing measurable success.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Kind of the way we're set up, because we're a sales org, right? Our gross income comes from commissions. And, I have 2 divisions. One is a solar division, right? And so that comes from the sale of the solar system. But at the end of the day, the amount that we get is basically our commission, right? And then on the AT&T side, that's another division that is strictly commission that we get, right? And so the way we set it up is if a dollar comes into the company, 65 cents of that dollar goes to the sales organization in terms of the management, middle management, and entry level reps in the organization, and then 35% goes to the company. So that is all really commission based. It's production based. You know what I mean? So we're able to do it that way because we know that if the company earns $3.65 is going to that individual versus having to figure out, okay, what revenue do we need to bring in order to pay for this individual? They're already paid for. They're paying for themselves essentially, right? We have bases against commission, but that is minute compared to the income that they're actually making, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so that's kind of how we're set up with that. How would you recommend, let's just say, because there is still a lot of commission only positions out there. They're 1099, they're remote, they're strictly supposed to bring in new clients to the company, right? Mm-hmm. They do it from home, they do it over the phone, they do it virtual. How would you recommend somebody hiring for commission only? Is there a certain strategy for that?
Well, I mean, again, you've got to define the success metrics. And when someone's not meeting that, you have to let them go. And you have to be very serious about it. Because I think a lot of times people, and especially with the remote type sales positions, I mean, there are people right now that are collecting multiple paychecks. Like they don't have their eggs in one basket. They're doing this, they're doing that, they're doing a combination of things. And especially like, I think in the sales world, where it's like, okay, which one's going to hit, which one's going to be my golden egg, but they kind of keep the other stuff going too. So, I would definitely be really clear on that expectation. But I think that, for the right personality and the right kind of person, I mean, we recommend in your job posting, talking about your core values, not just listing your core values, but giving a clarifying statement about your core values, because there are lots of salespeople out there who just, have been in lots of different sales organizations. But there's not been an alignment of core values. And that's probably why they've left those other organizations. And so I would highlight that as one of your attraction factors in the job posting. And get creative, and then show kind of like the reverse engineering, show them like how to gamify this and, what they can do by it. I just think that, especially as a leader and the owner of the business, a lot of people just don't know what they don't know. And, they need guidance. They need to be taught. As entrepreneurs, we're constantly like, we've got this just crazy insatiable thirst for knowledge. So we're constantly like learning new things and such, but and we have access, and we're connected with networking, et cetera. But your employees, they don't necessarily have that same network. And so by exposing them to things and creating opportunities and, doing some extra training with them or suggesting podcasts to them, but just keeping that energy going, I think especially is really important in a sales organization, because it's hard. Some days you're going to, strike out. Some days you're going to get yelled at by people. And so, how can you get people to change their state quickly and keep their energy going? And I think gamifying it helps as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what you're kind of getting into there is mindset, right? And when you can not only hire an employee, train them on how to do the position, and then also develop them in their niche, right? Or in their zone of genius, but then you can kind of step outside of that and also develop their mindset with them, and as a company, you guys are developing your mindset. That kind of creates influence, right? And I'm in the middle of Malcolm Gladwell's the leader within. I'm going to butcher the title. I never paid attention to titles. I just read the book.
Yeah.
But the leader within 2.0, I believe, is what it's called. And he talks about the levels of leadership. There's 5 of them, right? The one is the title. You have the title, and so people are going to listen to you because you have the title. It's very simple. The second one is connection, and you actually genuinely give a crap about your employee, you know what I mean? And so that they feel that, and there's a connection there. And then the third, I believe, is influence, where you've actually helped them in their position. And then now you're also leading them with things like mindset. And so you keep ascending up those 5 levels of leadership. And I'm like a quarter of the way through the book, so I don't remember them perfectly yet, but it really resonated with me because of the mindset piece. And that's something that we've been instituting in our company for, I want to say, the past year since I joined Apex. And a lot of what I'm learning in Apex is mindset, right? And so whenever I learn it, then I immediately share it with the rest of the company, and then over time I'll create a training around it or an SOP based on that, and that's kind of how we're making sure we're reinvesting into our company. Yeah. And that's creating, and then being upfront about the core values. It's creating an attraction to our company.
For sure. So if you want a quick hack on mindset and energy and getting people in the right state. So we start our daily mornings. We have vitamin C meetings in our different offices. So vitamin C, it's SEE. And in it, we use ClickUp. So everyone kind of puts in, they've got a dashboard. Here are the 3 things I did yesterday. Here are the 3 things I'm going to do today. And they have links to what they've been working on, so we can actually click it and see it, to see the progress and such. So what's cool about that is, we can share people's work and their contributions, what they're doing, and other people are getting to see something that they might not kind of be able to see otherwise and such. But we start that meeting with a celebration. And so the celebration is either, someone that did something or something that came in for the team, or just it's a positive thing. And what's cool about that is, if someone comes in and has had a crappy morning, and they come into the vitamin C meeting and we start with the celebration, there's enough other people there that get excited about the celebration that this person is now, hey, yeah, that's pretty cool. And it changes their state. It changes their energy. And it just reminds them of the purpose, that we're a team and we're here and we're working together. And it tends to make them leave whatever was like happening before they stepped into the office, dissipate. And so I find that to be just like a great game changer. It's like getting everyone, kind of mindset. It's getting everyone into the same, kind of let's go peak state, out of the gate.
No, I love that. Vibration is a real thing, right? And we can all feel it within each other. That's why when you come into the office and somebody probably doesn't even say 2 words, but you can feel something's off, right?
For sure.
And that's in their vibration. So one of the things that we started doing, it's funny you mentioned every morning, because I think that's a great practice first thing in the morning to have that celebration. So what we like to do now is gratitude. So every morning in our sales flow chat, the staff, the salespeople, operations, leadership will all take the time to post one thing that we're grateful for. And it could be as simple as waking up another day, right? Or having all 10 fingers and 10 toes, you know what I mean? Because not everybody has them, right? And a lot of times it's the simple things, and then it is big things like, closing that 10 kilowatt system yesterday. It could be anything they want. But when you start your morning out that way, everything else seems relative, to where it's like, hey, I have another day. I'm saying I have another day with my family. I have another day to go out and make it an impact, And so, when you do get cut off in traffic, it doesn't like start your day off bad because you've already started it off good by practicing gratitude.
Exactly.
So that's one of the things that we like to do a lot.
That's awesome.
So, what if you're hiring for I already asked you this about the commission position. Actually kind of a nuance to it though. So sales organizations, we often bring people from, heavy salaried positions, right?
Yeah.
And so they make the transition from heavy salary to heavy commission. And while we still may have enough in there as a base in order for them to pay their bills and stuff, they're used to let's just say 150 a year, right? And then the base with us is 75 a year against commission, right? And typically the commission for the position is 150 a year. And we know this, right? And we see it every day and we execute on it. But I guess, how do we communicate that to them to where they're not skeptical and concerned about taking a pay cut?
Well, I think sharing case studies and sharing examples of people in your organization who've made that same transition. I mean, I'm sure you have those. And that would be like, okay, if he could do it, I can do it. It is, for some people, they're not risk takers. So that's a risk taking is one of the aptitudes. So I would say risk taking would be something that you need to measure with these individuals as an aptitude that you need for someone who's in a role that is, going from, because a risk taker will not, will take the risk and will not accept defeat. So so you want someone who's a risk taker, and a lot of people, aren't risk takers, to be honest. And that would be a mishire for you, is someone who just starts freaking out because they're not getting that big salary check anymore.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because Alicia, my fiance, she's actually been a teacher her whole life, and I took her to an Apex Live one time, and she's been very unhappy with the workload of teachers. It seems to be a common theme. Yeah. Almost every person I talk to is like, oh yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. So the workload is rough on them. The work itself, they're getting less time to teach. And so she actually made the transition from teacher. Now she's going to open up her own tutoring service for in homeschooled students. Okay. Super. So brilliant. It's been crazy seeing her basically change her mindset, which is rare in humans, right? And so it's kind of cool to see that happen.
Oh, that's exciting.
So one of the things you mentioned on your profile was there's a valuable lesson entrepreneurs can learn from Buffalo. So I was very curious as to what that was. That was probably my most the one I was most intrigued about. Okay.
So the funny thing is that when and this applies, I think, to entrepreneurs definitely, is we kind of get into a rut. And so we kind of do what everyone else is doing. And so, cows in a field, what do when a storm is coming over the hill? They look kind of behind them and they go, oh, the storm is coming. And have you ever seen a cow run fast? No. So the cow just moseys, keeps going, away from the storm. They think that they can go away from the storm, but we know what's going to happen. The storm is going to catch up on them, and they're going to be slowly walking in, with the storm catching up with them. And what a buffalo does is the opposite of a cow. A buffalo sees the storm coming and they say, all right, let's get this over with. Let's just charge straight at the storm and we'll get through it faster than getting stuck in it like the cow. And so the same is for entrepreneurs. Like, you need to take action. Nothing's going to change if you just keep doing the same old, same old. So, if you need to improve your hiring processes because they're lackluster, they haven't been producing 90% of your hires being 5-star employees, then you need to take hold of this and you need to spend some time, some dedicated time, just getting through it and knocking it out. I mean, that's why we run intensives where we just really kind of force you to go through the storm like a buffalo and be done with it. And then you've got these packets, you've got a process, you've got a system, you've got consistency. And now anytime you have an open position, boom, 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 you've got all the assets ready to go and you can make that 5-star hire.
And that's huge. So I noticed your rapid real guide was trademarked. Is that Buffalo story trademarked? Because if not, I got to steal it.
No, it's not trademarked. I don't know. So I had heard that from someone who was on the podcast, and I was just like, this is brilliant. And then I did some research on it. It's well known in the web universe.
Once you started explaining the cows, I was like, yeah, Buffalo do go into the store. And so I bet you she's going to talk about them going towards it. So no, that makes a lot of sense.
So be a Buffalo entrepreneur.
Be a Buffalo. I love it. That's great. And it makes a lot of sense because too many times we do enough to avoid that problem instead of just heading into it, fixing it. And it does, it takes time, especially when you're talking about an intense overhaul of your hiring process, especially like in a sales organization, like that is intertwined into everything because we're so used to turnover, right? And so the idea of doing something differently after we've done it a certain way for 10 years so that we can increase the quality of our hires.
Yeah. Reduce that turnover.
Is daunting, but obviously a year later, you're gonna be so thankful you did. So.
Oh yeah. Well, it shouldn't take you that long to revamp it, but
I was just thinking though. Yeah.
1 hour a day for 6 weeks. You could do it.
Awesome. So you've got a few different businesses right now. You've got your agency. As far as the 5-star employee rating system, is that its own separate entity?
That is its own separate entity. So
okay.
Our primary businesses are, we have a construction material supply business and
cool.
And then we have a claims processing business. We process long-term care claims.
Mm-hmm.
I host a podcast. We have a preschool consulting business. I mean, the eggs are not in one basket. That was a lesson I learned back in the day. And then this all-in company is kind of, I'd say it's like in a startup mode because what we're doing is we're previewing content for the book All In that Mike and I are collaborating on. And so people that are going through the programming will be case studies in the book. So
no, that makes a lot of sense.
I'm spending the bulk of my time in All In right now, and then 10 hours just overseeing the existing businesses.
Yeah, that makes sense too. And the fact that you've been able to create all those businesses probably on this platform. And, when I talk about building great sales teams, I didn't realize that I had a platform for it until I was like forced to make one when I became a consultant. And I was like, hey, I need a system to kind of work off of and audit these other companies against. So did you kind of go through that too? Or I guess when you talked about the Maverick advertising agency is when you kind of started creating the platform, huh?
Yes.
And then refining it over the years.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's 20 plus years in the making. And the Maverick Group was actually kind of acquired by one of our clients. So we went in-house and then I became kind of like the de facto expert on helping them with revamping their recruitment and hiring. And then if they would transfer people to my department, I mean, basically that was their kiss of death. Like, they knew they were going to get fired. It's just no one had the balls to fire them in the last 10 years that they had been there. So I'm about like, if they're not producing a return, they got to go. If they're not a 5-star employee, they got to go. And you don't need to give someone 6 months. Oh my gosh. Like
6 months.
Is my biggest, that's my biggest thing. It's like, well, we'll see what happens in 6 months. And I'm like, nothing's going to change in 6 months.
Oh, that's definitely a corporate model for sure.
So
one of the loaded questions, I should say, I ask at the end of every podcast. This is more, mindset and legacy, right? And although my show is about building great sales teams, I do like to cover this because I don't know, I like to mix it up a little bit and make sure that the listener doesn't just get tired of hearing the same things over and over again, right? When it comes to legacy, what does that look like for you?
So legacy to me is people who would, number one, that don't want to leave me. But I get it. Like, I believe in free will. And so, if someone has kind of run their tenure with our company and we can't offer them more, then go ahead, please, go on to something else. I'll be thrilled for you. But I know that legacy would be that if they wanted to come back, they would come back in a heartbeat, and that they would always say I was a great boss to work for. And we had a great culture in our organization. So.
Okay. Absolutely. Well, Danielle, I appreciate your time today. It's been a fantastic podcast and a lot of tactical things that the people that listen to this show can actually use. But if they decide, hey, I can use some of this stuff from the show, but now I need some help, how do they reach out to you?
Yeah, just go to 5staremployees.com.
Awesome.
Real simple.
And so well, yeah, that makes it a lot easier. And I try to do the same thing when I'm a guest too. It's like one website and go there and everything's on there, right? So we'll include that in the show notes. And I did want to thank you one last time for joining us on Building Great Sales Teams today.
My pleasure. Thanks so much, Doug. All
right, let's get building.
Thanks so much for tuning into this episode of Building Great Sales Teams. We sure do appreciate it. If you haven't done so already, make sure you're subscribed to the show wherever you consume podcasts. This way you'll get notifications as new episodes become available. Remember, great sales teams are not recruited. They are built block by block. Until next time.